end up getting Big Valley. Just don't take it personally. Just keep showing up for what you love, what you want to do.
I've had the most magical life. It was not what I expected. It was not at all what I dreamed about, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. With her golden hair, gentle smile, and effortless grace, Linda Evans once captured the heart of America, becoming a household name through the 1980s as Krystle Carrington on Dynasty. She was the image of elegance, the symbol of quiet strength, the woman millions tuned in to watch every Wednesday night. To her fans, she was perfection, the flawless beauty who stood up to Joan Collins's Alexis Colby in legendary battles that defined primetime television. But what unfolded on screen was only part of the story. Behind the gowns, the lights, and the applause was a woman marked by heartbreak, illness, and battles that audiences never saw. Linda Evans's journey was not one of seamless glamour, but of resilience carved from sorrow. The private struggles of a shy girl who became an icon, and the haunting loneliness of a woman who often stood in the spotlight yet felt unseen. The shy girl in the shadows. Linda Evans was born on November 18, 1942, in Hartford, Connecticut, into a family of performers. Her parents were professional dancers, people who lit up stages with confidence and flair, while their middle daughter shrank from attention, timid to the point of silence. When the family moved to North Hollywood in search of better opportunities, young Linda remained the quietest of her siblings, tucked into corners, her eyes downcast, her words soft and fleeting. At Hollywood High School, her crippling shyness became unbearable, so much so that she would sometimes throw up at the thought of speaking in front of a class. A drama teacher, recognizing the weight of her fear, suggested she join theater as a form of therapy. What might have seemed like a cruel joke instead became Linda's lifeline. On stage, she discovered that inhabiting another character allowed her to speak without fear, to exist without the vulnerability of being Linda. It was not fame she sought, but relief, the ability to find expression in a world that terrified her. Acting, for her, was not ambition, it was survival. An accidental beginning life sometimes pivots on the smallest accidents. For Linda Evans, that turning point came at 15 when she accompanied a friend to an audition. She had no intention of trying out herself, content to stand quietly at the back. But the director, noticing her presence, asked her to read. "I don't know how to act," she protested, but with a few hesitant lines, she secured the role. In a twist of fate, her friend was assured another part later, while Linda stepped into a world she had never imagined for herself. That commercial was her first on-camera role, and for the once shy teenager who had struggled even to speak aloud, the camera became a strange kind of freedom. She worked at the Paramount Theater as a cashier during her teenage years, never dreaming that decades later her name would be immortalized with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame right outside those same doors. Her early television appearances in series like Bachelor Father, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, and Wagon Train gave her a taste of the world she would one day command. Small roles blossomed into opportunities, and soon she was on the cusp of something far larger than she could have imagined. The Big Valley and a breakthrough. In 1965, Linda Evans was cast in The Big Valley as Audra Barkley, the youngest daughter in a wealthy Western family led by Barbara Stanwyck's Victoria Barkley. It was her first major role, and it reshaped her life. Audra was bold, alluring, and filled with an emotional complexity that demanded more than beauty from the actress who portrayed her. Linda rose to the occasion, infusing Audra with both fire and grace, captivating millions of viewers across the country. Just as important was her relationship with Stanwyck, who became both mentor and model, teaching Linda discipline, resilience, and the ability to command presence without raising her voice. The Big Valley gave Linda not only fame, but confidence, showing her that she could carry a long-running role, that she could be more than just a pretty face in a guest spot. By the time the series ended in 1969, Linda had grown from a shy girl who feared words into a woman who could hold an audience with the strength of her silence. Yet her greatest test, the role that would define her forever, was still ahead. Dynasty and the creation of an icon. When Dynasty premiered in 1981, Linda Evans stepped into the role that would define her career, Krystle Carrington. As the second wife of oil tycoon Blake Carrington, Krystle was intelligent, virtuous, and quietly resilient, a woman of grace locked in battle with her husband's fiery ex-wife, Alexis Colby, brought to life by the incomparable Joan Collins. Their on-screen clashes became television legend, particularly the infamous catfight scenes staged with operatic flair. But beneath the glamorous gowns and glittering sets, Krystle represented something more profound, a new vision of womanhood in the 1980s. She embodied both tenderness and strength, offering audiences a figure who could be virtuous without being weak, who could stand in her power without abandoning her softness. Week after week, millions watched Krystle navigate betrayal, passion, and rivalry. And through her, Linda Evans became the face of an entire era. She appeared in over 200 episodes, her presence irreplaceable to the series' success. Her performance won her a Golden Globe for Best Actress in 1982, along with multiple nominations and People's Choice Awards in subsequent years. Her impact was so immense that the media dubbed the frenzy Krystle Mania, a cultural phenomenon that extended far beyond the screen. Fashion, fame, and controversy. The character of Krystle Carrington did more than shape television. It shaped fashion. With Nolan Miller's costumes designed to never repeat, Linda appeared in endless arrays of gowns, furs, and tailored ensembles that set new standards of glamour for women across the globe. Her voluminous blonde hair, sharp eyes, and elegant style became iconic, imitated in homes and salons around the world. Off-screen, her own style, simple blouses, jeans, and tailored coats, made her an icon of understated sophistication. Yet with fame came controversy. A scene in which she kissed Rock Hudson on Dynasty became a national talking point after Hudson revealed he was HIV positive. The stigma of AIDS at the time sparked fear and speculation about Linda's health, thrusting her into the center of a public health panic she had never asked for. She weathered the storm with grace, her dignity intact, and in doing so became not only a star, but an unwitting participant in America's evolving conversation about fear, stigma, and compassion during the AIDS crisis. For Linda, the clothes, the kisses, the characters, they were more than entertainment. They were cultural moments that transcended television. The private struggles behind the glamour. Yet beneath the sequins and spotlights, Linda Evans' life was far from charmed. She endured broken marriages, betrayals that cut deep, and illnesses that left her fighting not only for health, but for hope. Twice married and divorced, she confessed that at times loneliness and despair nearly consumed her. There were moments when she no longer wished to live, moments when the image of Krystle Carrington felt like a cruel contrast to the woman she was inside. Fragile, searching, scarred. At one point, she even faced legal disputes that shocked fans who believed she was untouched by scandal. Her struggles with depression and physical illness were long and grueling, and for years she stepped back from Hollywood altogether, retreating to a quieter life far from the red carpets. To the world, she had been a goddess in diamonds. To herself, she was often a woman in survival mode, learning again and again how to start over. Resilience and reinvention. What makes Linda Evans's story remarkable is not her fame, but her resilience. Each time life unraveled, she found a way to rebuild, to find meaning beyond the applause. She embraced a quieter existence, focused on health, self-discovery, and personal growth. She found peace in nature, in cooking, in the stillness that had terrified her as a child, but became her solace in later years. She emerged as an example of grace under pressure, showing that survival itself can be heroic. At 83, she speaks candidly about her past, acknowledging the pain but also the beauty in the life she has lived. "It was not what I expected. It was not what I dreamed about," she says, "but I wouldn't trade it for anything." Her story is not the tale of a flawless icon, but of a woman who walked through heartbreak and illness, through betrayal and despair, and still found gratitude in the journey. The return of Krystle Carrington. By 1991, Dynasty had already cemented its place in American television history, but its ending in 1989 had left fans with loose threads and unresolved storylines. That year, Linda reprised her iconic role in Dynasty. The Reunion, a two-part miniseries that became an event of cultural nostalgia. More than 23 million viewers tuned in for the first episode, a staggering figure that proved Krystle Carrington still lived vividly in the hearts of Americans. Linda explained that she returned not for salary or spotlight, but for closure, for the fans who had given her so much and who deserved a graceful ending. Krystle awoke from a coma, rejoined Blake, clashed once more with Alexis, and as a gift to loyal audiences, even faced Joan Collins in one final, unforgettable showdown staged dramatically on a fashion runway. At 49, Linda radiated the same grace, elegance, and quiet strength that had once defined her role. Fans sent flowers, letters, and organized viewing parties, as though Dynasty was not just a show, but a shared family ritual. Critics praised the miniseries as one of the most heartfelt comebacks of the decade, proof that Krystle was more than a character. She was memory, icon, and cultural anchor. For Linda, it was not just a role revisited. It was a way to honor her audience and close a chapter with dignity. Honored as a television legend. Even as Linda stepped away from regular acting roles, her legacy continued to be celebrated. In 2011, she and the Dynasty cast received the TV Land Award, a tribute to the cultural phenomenon they had created in the 1980s. Krystle Carrington's image remains forever placed alongside Alexis Colby and Dallas's J.R. Ewing as one of the defining icons of American television. Linda, though no longer on set, remains etched into collective memory. Her face, her hair, her gowns, her soft but firm presence embodying a time when primetime television was not just entertainment, but a cultural pulse. She is remembered not only for her fame, but for transforming the portrayal of women on television, creating a character both virtuous and strong, tender and unyielding. A private life, marked by heartbreak. Behind the fame, Linda's personal life was far more complex. Her romances, often hidden from public view, shaped her with both hope and devastation. At 18, she entered her first serious relationship with Patrick Curtis, a young man destined for success as a producer and agent. They were engaged for 2 years, but their paths quietly diverged, and the engagement ended without drama. Patrick later married Raquel Welch, leaving Linda with her first taste of quiet heartbreak. The realization that love does not always end with a wedding, but sometimes with silence. Years later, she met John Derek, a seasoned actor 16 years her senior, known as much for his relationships with Hollywood beauties as for his career. To Linda, John embodied maturity and sophistication. To John, Linda was a young star he could mold. Their marriage began with promise, but soon became a slow unraveling, marked by control and sacrifice. The weight of control. When Linda married John Derek, she was 26, rising steadily in her career. He was 42, confident, experienced, and commanding. The age difference did not bother her. Instead, it heightened his allure. In love and eager to please, Linda agreed when he asked her to give up her blossoming career to focus on homemaking. What seemed at first a gesture of devotion slowly turned into submission, as every detail of her life began to fall under his influence. From the clothes she wore to the friends she kept, John's approval became a quiet but constant requirement. One of the most visible examples of his control came in 1971 when he persuaded her to pose for Playboy. Linda, reluctant but eager to prove her devotion, agreed. The images resurfaced a decade later, hailed as symbols of her timeless beauty at 40. But to her, they carried the private sting of compromise. She had not posed for herself, nor for her fans, but to appease a man whose love demanded sacrifice. Linda believed love meant giving everything, but as time wore on, that belief left her not fulfilled, but diminished. Betrayal in public view. The betrayal came not quietly, but in the cruel glare of tabloids. In 1973, John Derek, at 46, abandoned Linda for Mary Kathleen Collins, an 18-year-old model he met while casting for a film project. He whisked her away to Europe, flaunting their affair on beaches and in photographs, while Linda learned of his betrayal not from his lips, but from the press. The scandal was brutal. Not only had he left her, he had replaced her with someone barely out of girlhood, parading the relationship without shame. Linda became the subject of whispers and cruel comparisons. Too old, too soft, unable to keep her man. The woman who had given up her career for love now faced humiliation on an international scale. Yet she did not lash out, did not launch public attacks or bitter interviews. Instead, she met the betrayal with silence, a silence so deep it seemed to wound her more than words ever could. She later admitted that it was the darkest period of her life, not only because of the marriage's collapse, but because of the public spectacle of replacement. It was not only the loss of love, but the loss of dignity. A woman who loved too much. What made Linda's heartbreak more profound was her refusal to hate. She never tore John Derek down in interviews, never filled the silence with bitterness. Instead, she admitted, "I loved him truly. I don't want anyone to think otherwise, even though he left in the worst possible way." For Linda, love was not something that could be erased, even when it betrayed her. This loyalty, this vulnerability, became both her greatest strength and her deepest wound. Fans who adored her as Krystle Carrington often did not see the parallels between the virtuous, faithful woman on screen and the real woman behind the role who endured betrayal with quiet grace. But Linda herself always knew. The roles she chose, the softness she carried, the tenderness she radiated, all of it was shaped by the pain she had endured in silence. Choosing resilience. Even after betrayal and heartbreak, Linda Evans chose to endure, to carry her scars with dignity rather than bitterness. She never remarried, never sought to reclaim love in a way that would erase what she had lost. Instead, she turned her life toward resilience, focusing on her health, her peace, and her ability to move forward without hate. She admitted to long struggles with loneliness and despair, moments where life felt too heavy, but she always emerged, finding strength in stillness, in nature, in solitude. If John Derek's betrayal was meant to break her, it instead revealed her endurance. The woman who once trembled at speaking in public had already spent her life turning weakness into strength, and in her personal heartbreak, she did the same. The reckoning of others. What made her journey even more poignant was the acknowledgement that came years later from Bo Derek, the young woman for whom John had abandoned her. In candid interviews decades later, Bo admitted the guilt that had haunted her, acknowledging that she had been half responsible for Linda's devastation. "I felt terrible about it," she confessed. "Linda was someone I admired, someone who treated me kindly, and I knew I had hurt her deeply." Her words did not erase the past, but they illuminated how betrayal leaves scars not only on the betrayed, but on the betrayer as well. For Linda, however, healing did not come from others' remorse. It came from her own decision to forgive, not for John, not even for Bo, but for herself. "Forgiveness wasn't for him," she explained. "It was for me, so I wouldn't carry the weight forever." In that quiet wisdom was the lesson of her life, that love is not blind devotion, but mutual respect. The quiet years of rediscovery. After her divorce from John Derek and the dissolution of her second marriage to Stan Herman, Linda entered what she would later call her years of freedom. Her marriage to Stan, from 1975 to 1979, was quieter, free from scandal, but ultimately marked by irreconcilable differences. She, a star still bound to sets and scripts. He, a man who longed for stillness away from Hollywood's noise. Their parting was mutual, gentle, and without bitterness. Through the 1980s, she dated men who filled chapters of companionship rather than epic romance. Lee Majors, still healing from his split with Farrah Fawcett. Richard Cohen, ex-husband of Tina Sinatra. And Dennis Stein, once engaged to Elizabeth Taylor. Each relationship was brief, each a reminder that her heart had not fully closed, but none carried the permanence she once sacrificed so much to secure. Then, in the 1990s, love returned in its truest form with Greek pianist Yanni, a man of music, passion, and soul. Their 9-year relationship was quiet, scandal-free, and deeply nourishing, marked by travel, shared dinners, and evenings of music rather than red carpets. When they parted in 1998, it was without hostility. Yanni later called her one of the most wonderful people I have ever known. For Linda, it was proof that love could be healing without possession, profound without permanence. Choosing a life without children. Linda Evans never became a mother, a fact that often surprised those who saw her as the epitome of nurturing femininity. Yet she spoke of this choice without regret. "I didn't become a mother," she once explained, "but I learned how to be a friend, a listener, a support for those who truly needed me." She poured her care into family, friends, and her wider circle, offering presence instead of traditional motherhood. This decision reflected her life as a whole. Unconventional, personal, deeply authentic. In an industry rife with competition and gossip, her gentle nature stood out. Joan Rivers once remarked, "Linda Evans is one of the very few people in this business I've never heard a single bad thing about." Her legacy was not only what she created on screen, but how she carried herself behind it, with kindness, humility, and grace. A body that betrayed her. Even as she found peace in love and forgiveness, Linda faced another battle, this time with her own body. By 2014, years of chronic back pain, neck injuries from overexertion, and lingering fatigue had left her physically exhausted. Prescription painkillers, at first a relief, became a dependence she never intended. Though she never used illicit drugs, her reliance on medication drew public scrutiny when she was pulled over in Washington state for erratic driving. Officers found prescription pills in her bag, legally obtained but sensationalized in the headlines. Linda Evans in drug incident blared across tabloids, reducing years of pain to scandal in a single line. She was not charged, but her reputation suffered, and the wound deepened when dashcam footage from the night was leaked in 2017. The image of Linda, trembling, weary, trying to explain herself, spread across the internet. For many, the goddess of Dynasty had fallen. Yet for others, it was a reminder that even icons are human, fragile, and vulnerable. The courage to be seen. Linda did not retreat from this humiliation. Instead, she faced it with rare courage. She admitted her struggles openly, speaking about chronic pain and dependence, choosing honesty over illusion. Hair loss from cortisone treatments left her devastated, yet she appeared publicly in wigs, refusing to hide. "There's no shame in trying," she said. "Everyone is fighting their own battle. I just choose to fight mine in the open, so others know they're not alone." In this transparency, she transformed from a symbol of glamour to a symbol of authenticity. She was no longer Krystle Carrington, the flawless figure in shimmering gowns. She was Linda Evans, a woman in pain, a woman healing, a woman surviving. That vulnerability, far from diminishing her legacy, deepened it, making her more beloved for her truth than for her perfection. A turn toward the spiritual. By the mid-1980s, even as Linda Evans stood at the height of her fame, she was already searching for something deeper than applause or the glitter of Hollywood lights. Years of playing glamorous women on screen had brought her recognition, but they had not quieted the restlessness inside her. Beneath the gowns, the awards, and the magazine covers was a woman carrying heartbreak, physical exhaustion, and the nagging question of whether true fulfillment could ever be found in the spotlight. That search led her to meditation, Eastern philosophy, and alternative healing practices. She was drawn to the teachings of J.Z. Knight, a controversial figure who founded the Ramtha School of Enlightenment in Washington. While critics dismissed Knight's claims of channeling a 35,000-year-old spiritual being, Linda was less interested in the spectacle and more moved by the sense of community, discipline, and self-reflection that the school fostered. For a woman who had so often lived in the glare of others' opinions, what she found was a rare space of peace. To be closer to that environment, Linda made the bold decision to leave Hollywood behind and move to Rainier, Washington, purchasing a 70-acre property surrounded by forests and silence. In that natural sanctuary, she traded the endless demands of red carpets and camera crews for mornings filled with meditation, long walks across her land, and dinners shared with her sister, her stepdaughter, and a small circle of trusted companions. She began exploring natural therapies, turning to plant-based healing, energy work, and breath work as ways to restore balance, not only to her body, but to her spirit. "I used to think I needed someone else to feel complete," she said in a rare interview. "But now I understand every answer I ever needed was inside me." Living outside the spotlight. Her retreat from public life drew mixed reactions. Some interpreted her decision as reclusive, eccentric, or even escapist. After all, how could a woman who had once defined primetime elegance step away from everything she had built? But for Linda, the move was liberation. Hollywood had given her fame, but it had also taken her privacy, her peace, and often her dignity. In the misty quiet of Rainier, she found the stillness she had never been allowed to keep during her career. Her days became simple and intentional, tending to gardens, cooking, walking the quiet trails that wound through her property. and hosting only those gatherings that brought joy instead of pressure. She no longer needed roles, awards, or magazine covers to validate her worth. After years of betrayal, heartbreak, and the public scrutiny of her health struggles, she discovered meaning in simplicity, reflection, and presence. This life was not about retreat, but about rebirth. Where once she had been consumed by the wounds of love lost and the demands of fame, she now lived with a sense of balance and purpose. A woman who had not only survived, but learned how to thrive in solitude. For Linda Evans, the quiet forests of Washington became her sanctuary, her reminder that true peace was never in Hollywood. It was always within her. Legacy of resilience. Today, Linda Evans's legacy extends far beyond her role as Krystle Carrington on Dynasty. Yes, she will forever be remembered for those legendary showdowns with Joan Collins, for the gowns and the Golden Globes, and for embodying an icon of 1980s culture. But her story is richer than those glamorous images suggest. She is remembered as the painfully shy girl who once trembled at the thought of speaking in class, yet transformed herself into one of television's most beloved faces. She is remembered as the woman who endured betrayal and public humiliation with quiet grace, refusing to lash out even when the world expected her to. She is remembered as the star who spoke honestly about her struggles with pain, prescription dependence, and hair loss, showing a vulnerable courage that only deepened her audience's respect. Most of all, she is remembered as a seeker, a woman who chose to step away from applause to find peace in nature and in herself. Her life is a reminder that beauty fades, fame shifts, love can wound, and health can falter. But dignity endures in how you carry yourself through those trials. Linda Evans lives quietly now, far from cameras, but her presence lingers in the reruns of Dynasty that continue to play worldwide, in the fashion trends she helped define, and in the hearts of those who admire not just what she achieved, but what she survived. Her legacy is not one of flawless perfection, but of resilience, forgiveness, and grace. A life that taught us that even in silence, one can